I'm going to go over some of the forecast that's been out there on silver and oil and what to watch for. But first, before I get into that, I want to clarify some of my things about thoughts on Jews, because I know a lot of people right now are kind of like looking at the economy and they're saying, the Federal Reserve is owned by Jews or was formed by Jews or whatever. And I'm going to say right off, first off, I'm not Jewish. Worked for Jewish people before, and I respect how they are in business. They're very smart, and a lot of people, no matter what wealth they have, they blow it all the time. I see this on the average person. They will, as soon as they get money, they spend it, they show off, they have a party, they drink it up, smoke cigarettes, buy useless crap. They're just all about them, and they're not thinking about where to place the money. And I've noticed about a lot of Jews, they're a lot shrewder with their money for that reason. It's not that, they're just economizing. And actually, I take their rules and I go even further with them. But I also want to point out, who is it, SGT Bull? He blocked me off his channel. I think he's the only guy I ever known who's blocked me off his channel for saying something critical of Jews that was legit. I forgot what it was. It was something like, well, there's only a couple percent of them, but they own most of the wealth. But that's not because it's because it's just smart. It's smart. I mean, people don't know how to play the game, but even when the average person, if they get handed millions of dollars in a lottery, that's why they stop doing that, and they do it in pieces. They'll blow the whole thing in a few years, and they'll be flat dead broke. And that is one reason that average people never seem to get anywhere. A lot of it is their own fault. And when the economy's good, everything's great, but when the economy's bad, there is some truth. They look for the scapegoat. There's some truth to that. I also know that, but I also want to point out something. I differentiate between the supposed Rothschilds or whatever it is. I read all that stuff. The Protocols of Zion, the conspiracy things. I read these things. I think there's some truth to them too. But let me put it this way. You're talking, say the Jewish businessman. That is, I'll talk specifically about Jews. I got, if you're Jewish, I'm not. You just figure out what I'm saying, because I'm just going to say whatever it is. The Jewish businessman in the United States, it's on top of his game. For the largely, they're not anti-American. This is where they make money. They don't want to be hated. They want to be liked. That's the game. This, if they're a person that has an apartment complexes all over the country, they want renters. They want people that have the ability to pay the rent. They don't want to screw up the goose that lays the golden eggs. They don't want to do this. So I differentiate between this theoretical Rothschilds type stuff, because that isn't your average Jewish elite businessman. I don't know what that stuff is, and I don't think anybody does, because whatever they read, they got it off the internet. And if the Rothschilds are looking to, make the United States very weak, well, the Jewish businessman that's in the United States, it's on top of its game, and one of the wealthier people in the United States, would actually be at odds with the Rothschilds, because they don't want to screw up their businesses that are located here in the United States. So, and I tell you, I'm very honest with, I work for Jewish guys, and I'm extremely honest with that stuff. I don't care about Israel, I don't care about Iran, I don't care about Iraq. It's strictly business. If we get oil from the Middle East, fine, we get oil from the Middle East. That's the way I look at it. I don't get into any of this kind of religious stuff or any of these other things. I'm aware of all the theories out there that discuss about Jews. I'm 100% aware of that. But and I'll criticize some stuff too. I mean, sometimes they got this 18-year-old German guy back in 1944. They used to walk around the perimeter of a concentration camp, and you don't know. Guy was brainwashed, and it could be 90 years old now, and they're after him. I'm like saying, that's a bunch of crap. I don't like that. I don't like that kind of stuff, But I'm not against Jews or not necessarily 100% for them either, I'm just whatever. But I know a lot of Jewish, my opinion is a lot of the Jewish businessmen in the United States, they're not anti-American. They're far more pro-American than people think. They don't want the United States destroyed. They're not looking for that. That might be something with a Rothschild. I don't know what the heck the Rothschilds are doing. But I'm saying the average Jewish businessman that's on top of his game is not anti-American. So, and that one tidbit I got from Mark Faber, he talked about his Jewish friends that were in business, which were probably multi-billionaires if they were his friends. A lot of them are very heavily into the precious metals themselves. I mean, your average Jewish businessman doesn't run the Federal Reserve, and I'm not even that critical of Bren Bernanke, because what the hell is he going to do, I mean, there's other people pulling his policy of pulling out the manufacturing in the United States and moving it to China, and there's a lot of stuff going on. You really can't say it's the Jews doing it. That's really what it is. And believe me, I'd be very critical of them when they deserve it. I am. But I don't think it's them. There's a lot of stuff going on. But anyway, I want to get on to this thing with oil and silver. And I want to make a couple comments about the Lindsey Williams again, because I know he made specific predictions about where oil is going to go to, and they're flat out wrong for 2011. And he said, but the game that actually was going on was volatility. Oil was going up $10, down $10, up $10, down $10, hard, like every week. It was doing that crap all summer. Now, if you didn't listen to Lindsey Williams, you could have made a hell of a lot of money on the volatility. And right now, I'm not betting really because of what this guy said, but it's something I found that was interesting. I got out of my oil position almost 100%. It's a guess, but it seems to be moving slightly downward in all this talk about Iran's war and closing the Straits of Hormuz and all this stuff. I think for now it's a bunch of BS, and I think this thing's going to drift slowly downward. It seems to be. But if I blow this, I'm still in silver. I'm still in silver stocks. I'm still in agriculture, palladium, copper even, And what I'll do is I'll just look for another opportunity. But my suspicion is that this stuff's going to drift down a little lower, probably maybe down to like 95 or even lower than that. And I'm not going to be jumping in until I see deals. And if I see, well, I'm still heavily into commodities, but that's what I'm doing. That's my decision right now. Because I'm not listening to Lindsey Williams at all. And nobody should ever make a financial decision off that guy. I did, because he was 100% correct in the past about oil when everybody was flat out saying the opposite. But I think oil probably will skyrocket, but this year quite a bit. I think it is definitely going to go to $150, $200 a barrel. But it's going to drift down first. That's what I think. And when it hits these highs, it's going to drop like a stone. And that's the same way I think silver is going to play out too. I think those highs I was talking about, 85, 90 or dollars or more, I think it's going to hit those highs and it's going to drop below 50. So I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell. If I hit sets highs like that, I'm going to sell. Now, I don't have a channel that has a gazillion users on it, so I'll save my game. Otherwise, if this was on, if I was going to make something with a new national TV saw, I wouldn't influence it. The whole game is to cut the other guy out of the deal and get yourself the money. That's the whole game. So my thought is silver's gonna go very high, drop hard this year. The high point, I think, is going to be well over that 60 mark that some people are talking about. I think it's going to be well over that. Now, this is somebody from Blackstone Vice Chairman Byron Wine. He released his, I don't know if he's Jewish, he might be, released his 27th annual market predictions list, and the most surprising prognostication centers on oil prices. He tells a daily tickets Aaron Task that oil could drift to $85 a barrel, about 15% drop from oil's current price. I don't know. That could be. Moreover, worldwide demand for crude oil will soften as global growth slows. That I do agree with. The actual demand for oil is not there. This is all over geopolitical events that's holding it up that high. So I think if there is a scam going on in oil, it's volatility. It's not this. You can't go by what Lindsey says. It's volatility. Wait for pullbacks, buy, sell when it gets up to a certain point after you secure profits. Take the fiat. And my guess is right now, not because of what he's saying, but it might have some effect on it. I don't know. It could be in the short term. I think oil is going to go very high this year. Very high. But it's also going to be lower than it is right now, too. So I think that the whole watchword is volatility, and that's the same way it's going to play in the silver markets. It talks about the prospect of U.S. becoming less dependent on Middle East oil being a game changer. It's a big deal. That's true, but it's not coming on fast enough. Biggest suppliers of the U.S. were Canada, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, and Venezuela. Now, I did mention that Nigeria has a lot of problems. That oil could be cut off, and that could actually send prices up a great deal because the imports from Nigeria are bigger than this big bonanza oil production that's going on in the Bakken Reserve right now. It's actually higher than that. So that would have a major impact on oil prices in the United States, and that is a possibility, But I am not hanging in there, drifting up and down. I'm looking at several things at once, and I'll move into whatever I think is going to be the winner. So that's the way I'm playing it. Because right now I don't care about making money, Yes, he predicts the S&P index can settle above 1,400 with profit margins and corporate earnings staying strong. That I totally agree with because, there's been a lot of doom and gloom predictions for 2012 because of what happened in 2011 and all this stuff about the elite or getting out of the stock markets and everything like that. I think at one point in time there is going to be this major crash that even Mark Farber alludes to. That's going to be worse than 2008. But it's going to be a ways off because since elections are coming up in Europe and elections, of course, are coming up in the United States, I think it's almost a sure bet they're going to do everything to make the economy look as rosy as possible. So I think the S&P is going to do fine, and also that's going to push up all the commodities across the board, including like cotton, wheat, corn, you name it, They're all going to go up. But I think silver is going to do very, very well. A lot of people are afraid to say because they made a lot of bad predictions in 2011. They got real brave about making predictions of way the heck over $100 an ounce when it was up in the 40s. But, when it gets crashed down, everybody gets all meek. They're afraid to make any kind of high predictions. Same with gold. Gold was going to be at least $2,500 by the end of the year because it was near 2,000 back in August. Now they're all afraid. Oh, it's going to maybe top 2,000. I think it's going to exceed 2,500. No problem. That's going to make up for lost time. He goes on to say the U.S. housing market bottoms in 2012. I do agree with that. I think it's probably near a bottom right now. The yield on U.S. 10-year U.S. Treasuries notes rises to 4%. I don't think so, because Bernanke says he's going to keep interest rates very low. So I don't know where he comes up with that, but I don't think so. But he says he's been wrong 50% of the time. But my opinion is I think he'd be wrong on this and correct on the U.S. housing market bottoming. And in 2012, it probably already has bottomed. He talks about the computer becomes the principal weapon of terrorists and geopolitical adversaries, and a number of cyber attacks increases. That's going to be the excuse for controlling the net. That, I think, is going to be a given. President Obama wins re-election? I think so. George Soros wins re-election? I think so. Al-Assad's 11-year rule in Syria ends. That's the policy of the elite. And that is a good prediction by Lindsey Williams. This is one of the regimes they want to topple. So he's got good information. But I think most of the money's going to be made on the oil by volatility, not just hold. This is an article from November 25th, 2011 about various silver forecast. I'm going to go over this real brief. Mike Maloney, he forecast $1,500 an ounce. I don't know. I mean, that would have to be gold around $12,000 roughly, I would imagine. I think that's kind of high, but you know what? If it goes up that high, I think we're going to have a hell of a lot of inflation. That's not going to be in real dollars, but even if there's a lot of inflation, a good place to be is in silver. Average for silver forecast $400 to $500 an ounce. I think those are reasonable numbers eventually where it's going to get to. And I think it's going to be a lot sooner than later. I don't think it's going to be just 5 or 10 years down the road. I think it would probably be whenever the U.S. government has to restructure debt or do something. I kind of disagree with what Lindsey Williams says about an actual debt default, because that would obliviate the currency, and I don't think they're looking to do that. I think they'll do. I don't know what they're going to do exactly, but I don't think there's going to be an actual debt default eventually. And he states that it won't happen in 2012. I put some faith in Lindsey Williams' predictions, but he's not. I gotta use my own analysis on that. I think it's. I don't think they're going to do a full debt default. Probably will happen is a World Bank will buy up the U.S. debt and it'll own the U.S. the Federal Reserve that way. I mean, that would make the most sense. Somebody would buy the debt, and it would be a global institution. That would make the most sense. James Turk, he forecasts the price of $400 an ounce. I'd agree with more like that. This Robert Kiyosaki, $6,000 an ounce. I think that's totally crazy, unless there's hyperinflation. I think that's totally crazy. Mike Maloney, $1,500 an ounce. I don't know. There'd have to be a hell of a lot of inflation. Max Kaiser, $500 an ounce. Now, I know if you take the inflation going back to 1980 high, it's $402 an ounce. If you use real inflation, if you use the government figures, it's $135 an ounce. I want to actually say something about what's going to happen this year, and I think this guy is. He's got some forecast on here. He says he stands by $140 silver price in 2012. I don't think it's going to go that high. I think it's going to go a lot higher. I think it's going to get close to 100 this year, though. And very few people are saying that. He talks about there's a very well-established relationship between how silver and gold trade. They often trade similar in the same time period and also at similar milestones, although these milestones are sometimes reached at different times. In other words, gold, and he goes on to say, like, I'm not going to get into all the analysis because it doesn't mean nothing unless it's dead on accurate. It does. Let me put it this way: you can say anything with analysis. You can argue any way you want. His basic point is saying now, with gold having passed $1,700 twice the 1980 high of $850 already, it stands to reason that $100 twice the 1980 high of $50 silver is virtually guaranteed. Now, you have to remember when it hit this 850 high in 1980, the silver-gold ratio was 15 to 1. So I don't think it's going to hit this high. But I do stand by what I said. I think the 2,500 gold is pretty good, reasonable um, mark. And if you're saying 30 to 1 silver, if it goes back down to 30 to 1 silver to gold, that would put it over $80 an ounce this year. So I think that's pretty reasonable. It may go a little higher. That's what I'm thinking. But you know what I would do? I'm going to sell some physical at that price, and I think there'd be a pullback. So that's what I'm going to do. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's what I'm going to do. If I can see silver get near $100, I'm selling some physical because I think it's going to pull back hard. And what I'll do is, if it pulls back hard, I'll buy half the physical back and keep the fiat and use the fiat in other areas. This was something from MindWeb, and usually I trust a lot of this stuff because that's where I picked up a lot about demand destruction. When sometimes miners are very afraid of very high prices on what the materials that they mine because they're very aware of demand destruction. That's why I think silver, you're going to make the most money if you can actually guess which way it's going to go. Now that's extremely hard to do, but sometimes you can tell. If say for instance silver's sitting at $33 an ounce today, and it was down below 30. Well, if it goes up to like $90 an ounce 3 times practically in a year or less than a year, and it's that high, obviously you think it's going to sustain that rate. I know the silver bugs are going to be saying, oh, they're breaking the backs of JP Morgan and all this kind of stuff. It's not going to happen. You're going to see a serious pullback at that time, and then it'll go up again from there. But if you see something go up like 300% and you're holding that stuff, I consider it something I want to dump. That's what I look at it as. I consider it something I want to dump. You can say I don't understand silver or not, but I think I understand where you get your money from. The stuff you spend is fiat cash. And I would buy it back because I think this stuff is there, but I'm not going to dump all of it. I'll just dump a small part of it. Taking the average of the analyst forecast for silver, this is from the MindWeb. They anticipate an average silver price over the year of, say, $34 and a high of 45. But even this, what some might consider conservative predictions, still represents almost 40% increase over the current $32 price for the metal. But a lot of people are predicting well over $50 an ounce. And I think if you get that kind of price, it should be a sell. It talks about the silver price is notoriously hard to predict and tends to be a potential graveyard for most speculators. That is absolutely true. And I think the only reason I want to say what I'm doing is because I don't have too many listeners, because I don't think I want to say it to the whole world, As we mentioned in these pages before, silver is sometimes referred to as the devil's metal due to its perceived volatility and unpredictability, which is why the forecasters are predicting such a wide range. And that is actually where you can make the most money. But, like I said, I was buying some more physical, bought a little more PSLV here and there. So, if I start seeing gains of like double, this stuff is gone. This stuff is gone. And if I see triple, there's going to be more physical gone too. And I'm going to wait for a pullback. But I'll still be sitting on a majority of the physical, no problem. And because I'm not 100% sure, and I don't think even Ben Bernanke knows if we're going to go into hyperinflation or not. But if you can actually guess, and the whole game here is it's a card game. For every winner, there's 10 losers. That's why you don't see this information on the net. They're not going to reveal their game. And just be wary where you're getting advice from. But just use a little common sense. If you got a triple gain, don't be afraid to sell some physical. You'd be crazy not to. I know it's saying about you want to break J.P. Morgan. Uh, you're not going to break him that way, believe me. By just holding. You're not